Hey guys, welcome back. This is a little bit different this week. I'm going to do a two-page project life. This is week 19, but it was actually week in the life. So I committed to taking the photos for week in the life. I didn't commit to an album. Like, lovely patrons talked me out of it. I have enough on my plate without another huge project. So this is going to be my kind of documentation of that week, the week in the life. I'm just going to do a two-sided 12 by 12 pocket page instead of my usual single page. So I've got a little bit of a plan here. Really all I've done is I have picked one photo from each day of that week. And I'm going to tell one story from each day. It's not going to be like a massive deal. Just a little snippet, something slightly kind of more expanded than my usual project life week, but nowhere near as complicated or intense as putting together an entire album. Now everything here I'm using out of my stash. I have my project life cards split into kind of categories, I guess, and so the categories that I've pulled out for this week were anything sort of week or numbered, and also just some sort of generalized journaling cards. One of the things I did pull out though are those gold foiled number cards. I can't even tell you how many years old they are. They were an add-on, I think, from Studio Calico a very, very, very long time ago. I've used none of them. I actually bought 2 sets at the time, and I've used none, so now seemed like the perfect idea. I figured at this point that I could kind of join those 2 cards together and make my title card, but I'm gonna do something a little bit different than that. And apart from that, I'm just kind of filling in the card slots with a mixture of, there's going to be a few kind of filler cards in there, and then there's one journaling card to kind of match each photo to add my story to. So it's a really kind of simple process. Those journaling cards I'm tending to keep sort of lighter and a bit more spacious so that I can write a whole lot of journaling. This week's spread is going to include a whole lot of journaling in comparison to my normal spreads, and so I wanted an entire card for each story. Now I've got one more 4x6 spot down here that is just a filler spot really, and so I went through some of my 4x6 cards. These ones I tend to store in sort of rainbow order, but I didn't want a particular kind of color in this spot, so I went to the back of my stash, which is all of my multicolored cards, and I just picked out this really old one. I think that's from Life Love Paper maybe. Again, I think it was a Studio Calico design, that one, but I like this. Got all this kind of like weekly ordinary life kind of things on there, coffee and phones and, you know, just regular life stuff. Plus it's not too overwhelming as far as colors go. Lots of these, as I was flicking through these kind of colored ones, they're all a little bit too much, and because I've picked out some of those lighter cards, I really wanted to keep the whole thing kind of a little bit more light and bright. So that was really probably the most complicated part of this whole process. And then I turned the camera off and spent a good deal of time doing some journaling. Just did that on my typewriter, so some of it's a little bit messy. One of the cards I did kind of do too many accidental spelling mistakes on there for it to be useful. Usually I don't mind, I just kind of pop them together, but I decided to replace it. So I've got all my journaling on there. And this was when I decided that I actually wanted something a little bit heavier for my title card. The white background on these cards wasn't quite what I wanted. So I did go through my more kind of neutral colored 4x6s, and I've come up with this kind of a cork pattern with a white polka dot on it. I like that it's not competing with anything else. There's a lot going on in these spreads, so it's a little bit more on the simpler side. I trimmed out the gold foiled numbers, including cutting out the hole in the middle of the 9, which I just did with a knife. And then I went through my stash of alphas. These ones I really don't love. They're not particularly sticky, so off camera I did glue those down with a little bit of liquid adhesive, and I'm not writing week with these. I'm just doing the initials WITL for week in the life, and then I've got some smaller little black alphas from Feed Your Craft, and I'll add the like week title on with that. So the sort of standout part of the title card is the number, so I've got 19, but you can definitely see that it's week in the life, and I have added the little week title in there as well. So pretty simple little title card, but as with everything this week, I'm kind of doing twice the amount of work that I would normally do on Project Life. So I did want to keep everything kind of as simple as possible. I'm not going too sort of crazy in terms of embellishments either. In fact, I'm not going to use any embellishments at all. I'm just going to do a little bit of stamping. So I've pulled out this old set from Citrus Twist because it had a very, very tiny set of days of the week. That was the only stamp set in my collection, my extensive collection, that I could find that had days of the week on it. So it might be something I need to invest in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp each sort of photo, or at least the card, to match the photo with the day of the week that it corresponds to, as well as the date. So I'm not date stamping my title card. I'm just going to date stamp each of those photos so I know which day it's from. Generally, I've put them in chronological order, except on the second page, because I've got those 4x6 slots. They're not quite. I've got Saturday at the top and Sunday at the bottom, and Thursday, Friday through the middle. So everything else is chronological, but because of those two, I decided to go ahead and date stamp each photo. And really the only other embellishment that I'm going to do is I've got a couple of brand new, sneak peek here, brand new stamp sets from Kellie Stamps. These are going to be released next week on the 23rd. And I'm using both the Dog Vibes and I Make Messes sets. Obviously, for my kind of everyday week to week, these sets could not be more appropriate. Dogs and making messes, crafting, it's pretty much all that goes on around here. So these were perfect for this week. I'm just going to sort of stamp them in and around the photos. Like I said, I'm not going too crazy. One of the things I did decide to do though was pull out these labels, these pre-printed and pre-cut labels. I'm pretty sure they came from the December set from Citrus Twist. There were a whole bunch that I never used for December daily. They've been sitting in a little jar on my desk, and I finally, what are we, start of June? Finally using up all of those labels that I cut in December. So the colors aren't perfect, but I'm just going with them. They're the only labels I had offhand. I'm also not doing a lot of stamping with black, so I don't want to kind of overwhelm the layout, and so I am using that lovely blue color from Catherine Pooler, just stamping a couple on the cards. I'm going to stamp mostly on the cards rather than on the photos. This one here, it's the same recipe that I'm doing for basically every photo. The first card that I did had the label pre-printed onto the card, and that was kind of where I got the inspiration for this sort of recipe from. And then I'm just recreating it each time. So sort of offsetting those labels onto the edges of the cards or the photos, and then stamping the day, and then adding the little date stamp in there. And that's all I'm going to carry on doing through the rest of the spread. Now this photo here, I really wanted to add a little stamp onto the actual photo. I just had difficulty deciding which one I was going to use because they all seemed pretty appropriate for our daily snuggles, and the card that I've used to add the kind of journaling for this story, it already has a little kind of sentiment on it, little sentiment design. It's one of the only cards that isn't just a straight up journaling card, so the stamp really did need to go on the photo. I print all my photos at home, as always, on Canon Photo Glossy 2 paper, which means stamping on the photos is not an issue. I stamped in white using that Brilliance Moonlight White ink. Now these ones here, there's a couple of pockets like this that are the 4x6 pockets, but I'm going to put 3x4 cards in them. So all I'm doing is just adding a little bit of washi tape onto the back, not the whole thing, just a couple of little pieces to keep them together, but stop those cards kind of slopping around in the pocket. Here's another photo that I'm going to stamp directly onto the photo. This time I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black, and you can see what I mean, like, about these stamp sets being perfect for this week. Like, it really is. It's either dogs or at my desk, pretty much. That's how the week goes. This was a digital printable by Humble and Create, and so it already said Friday on it. So I decided not to stamp the word Friday this time. I just added the date stamp directly onto the journaling card. I was going to run out of labels otherwise, so that was the perfect one to not stick a label onto. And the labels have actually become quite handy as far as like covering up little kind of busy bits in the photo as well. So I liked that. I did try really hard to take a lot of photos for Week in the Life, because at that point I wasn't sure whether I was going to be doing an album or not. So I had plenty to choose from. But, you know, sometimes I'm just like snapping photos rather than kind of composing them. And so those labels do become quite a nice little addition to covering up some of the not so great bits of the photo. Now this one here, I'm not entirely sure why it looks wrong. It just looks wrong. The way I've stamped the stamp, I don't think it's that it's not straight. I think because of the other angles in the photo, it didn't look straight. And so what I'm going to do is re-stamp that sentiment onto this larger label and just cover up the stamp. I don't think, even now looking at it, I don't think it wasn't straight, but it just did not look straight. And actually having the label on it, again, it kind of covers up those lines in the background and just makes it a little bit less, kind of confusing to the eye. And so because I've used the label on the photo, I'm not going to add a separate label onto the card. So I ended up stamping just directly onto that filler card with the numbers. The journaling I've kind of done for that day is a little bit more of those kind of currentlies rather than a single story. And so I think the date works best on the filler card, and it goes kind of all the way across that top row of the pocket. The same thing kind of works down here on this bottom row. That's all of Sunday. So I added the label onto the filler card again rather than onto the journaling card, which is already quite full. And then I added my stamp into my coffee cup, and that is my double page spread all done. Little bit harder to show you, so I'm just going to show you some close-ups here, but like I said, these two stamp sets will be released next week on the 23rd, but as always I have a discount code for you down in the description box, so grab a hold of that and prepare yourselves. These two sets are pretty cute, as you can see, lots of sentiments, and if you're anything like me, they work perfectly on the everyday. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.